Staff responsible for the sickening abuse at Winterbourne View got their comeuppance in court this week, but the judge was scathing about the company that ran the hospital, accusing them of only caring about profit. It's raised the question for politicians again: should care services ever be privatised?
In the 21st century, places like Winterbourne View should not exist. They should be closed and more local services developed.
You wait ages for a mayor and then 15 candidates come along all at once. The contest in Bristol is to be the biggest of its type in Britain. There have been more twists and turns than down a badger set over whether these furry creatures should be culled. MPs voted to cancel the shootings, but the government says it will push ahead, but next year. This is Popcorn and his proud master, the Tewkesbury MP, Lawrence Robertson. They just missed out at the parliamentary dog show, but then in Westminster, everyone wants to be top dog. Well, that was the week gone by in just 60 seconds. I want to pick up on one of those stories, the obvious one, really. The scandal at Winterbourne View, which is in your constituency, I think.
Nearby, certainly, yes.
Yeah.
And I think it shows what happens when places are not properly inspected, when companies who run these premises are not properly vetted before they start. And if this shocking thing teaches us anything, it's that whether it's public or private sector, you've got to have inspections, you've got to have whistleblowers who are listened to, and that simply didn't happen.
Well, it did happen, but just nothing was done.
No, but that's what I'm saying, whistleblowers who are listened to, and that's the key. There were people sounding the alarm at Winterbourne View, but people weren't listening.
The judge was very scathing in his comments about the company that runs that place, and said they were interested in profit before the residents. Should services like that ever be privatised?
The answer is you can find some really, really good privately run care homes of all kinds. I mean, I've got lots of them in Weston-super-Mare in my own constituency. So there are some really shining examples where they're excellently run and very, very well organised. But you've got to make sure that you are picking the good ones. And anybody who is paying money, in some cases thousands of pounds a week, to have someone cared for, needs to make sure that that care is what you're expecting and what you do.
Does the profit motive corrupt?
Absolutely not. I mean, I have got dozens of examples of really well-run, privately run care homes in Weston and all the way around the country. Steve will have them in his constituency too, which are really top-notch, and you'd be pleased to stay in yourself or have your relatives in.
You see, some people have been commentators have said, oh, this is what happens when you try and get care on the cheap. But this was not cheap.
Was it?
South Gloucestershire Council was writing cheques for £3,000 per person per week.
Which makes it incredible. I mean, just the brute finance ought to have made more questions be asked, as well as the humanity of the people there. So it's vital that we learn lessons from cases like this. But I think the crucial thing is occasionally you'll get a scandal in an NHS hospital or something like that. Wherever people are being cared for and vulnerable people are being cared for, we have to be twice as vigilant as we would be in general, and that simply didn't happen in this case.
We always hear, don't we, after scandals like this, procedures are being tightened, it can never happen again. And then
it can always happen again,
does.
and that's why processes to make sure that vulnerable people are protected have got to be strengthened.
You can't just let up on the vigilance. It's something which, if you relax, something will go wrong. So you've got to be eternally vigilant. Absolutely.
What other heads do you think should roll?
I guess it's always easy after the event pointing fingers at people, I know, and people who work for South Gloucestershire Council have been sacked. But I mean, the Care Quality Commission's got some pretty serious questions to answer, in my view.
We have to have really hard-edged, sharp inspections, as you rightly said, to make sure that this sort of stuff is spotted early.
Middle managers at South Gloucestershire Council have been sacked.
Yeah.
How far up the chain do you think it should go?
Well, clearly the question is, when the whistle was blown as it was, who were the people who knew about it? And they've got very serious questions. I mean, while the court case has been going on, I think we've had to hold off on that, but we do need to look very hard at how far up the organisation people knew what was going on.
And how confident can we be, do you think, in these inquiries to get to the bottom of what happened and to hold those accountable?
Well, we'll have to see how this one comes out. Steve will be closer to it, since it's closer to his patch than mine. So on that case, I can't comment, but you're absolutely right that each time you discover something that's gone wrong, you need to make sure that you can stop that recurring. But actually, there are always other avenues which could go wrong. You've got to be vigilant right the way across the spectrum.
But I think part of it is process, isn't it? What was very interesting is when these whistleblowers were complaining, when the complaints were coming in, The local council, for example, I mean, they did the right things. They held meetings. But nobody actually got in the car, or actually in South Gloucestershire case, it's only a couple of 100 yards, and went to have a look. What is it about big organisations that they seem incapable of actually doing anything which involves any sort of common sense?
It's almost like we were talking about on the railways, the fragmentation, because when I originally approached South Gloucestershire about this issue, they were saying, well, this actually is it was a hospital, it was a secure hospital, so is it the council, is it the NHS, is it this body? And it got so fragmented, there was no one person who the buck stopped with, and that's key.
It's that, and it's also paying attention to outcomes, not process. Is the result what you're after? Is the care what you should expect? If it isn't, all the processes in the world won't save you. So don't hide behind, oh, well, we did everything that the rule book said we should do. No, go and check.
I mean, unbelievably, in that place, there were places where people didn't go. Visitors weren't allowed in, which, you know, is shocking in itself, isn't it? Thank you. That's